him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Our head coach of our Louisville football program, Bronco Mandel.
The details themselves with the right preparation can separate you from mediocre competitors that don't do that. And so, yeah, the attention to detail, I think, drives the execution, or should I say brings the execution to life, especially in critical moments.
Oh, perfect. All right. The camera's set up good. Hey, what a great way to intro the show. Good morning, Vietnam. Channeling my inner Robin Williams, except I can't do it as good as he does. Hey, hope everybody enjoyed the balloons. My name is Ryan Tamori. This is the Morning Howl, brought to you by Dulce River Bakery and Coffee. We are at week 7, United States Air Force Academy. Heads to UNM. UNM is a 6.5-point dog. We'll ask Jacob Neff about that because my head exploded when I saw that line. A lot to get to today. Nick Coppola from the Las Cruces Sun News will join us today at 9:30 because we will be in Vegas for the Mountain West Conference basketball media days. I lost my train of thought there. On Tuesday night, Wednesday, and Thursday. The women are on Wednesday. The men are on Thursday. I'm sure more people are excited to talk about UNM basketball more than anything because we know they're getting ready for a Final Four run. Today's show, again, Dulce River Bakery and Coffee, Affordable Solar, Turquoise Desert Tap Room, Hydro Bar. Appreciate all of our sponsors. Again, Nick Coppola, 9:30. NMSU plays Louisiana Tech on Tuesday night, and Jacob and I will be there to watch them probably lose. Again, not much hatred for New Mexico State on here. It's just the way I see it, the lay of the land. Let me get to the panel all the way from the Bay Area. He's a 2-time, not once, not twice, offensive state lineman for San Juan Mendoza in the St. Pius Sartans, and played for Damian Segura, and his biggest accomplishment, an MVP of a 35-0 Filipino league in a Northern California rec league. His name's Rick Thompson. Richard, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. I'm waking up here to see that Utah State actually caught up against UNLV somehow in the end. But I'm happy to talk some Lobo basketball and gearing up to go out to Las Vegas with you and Jacob. So I'm just very grateful to be on this show and grateful to be here today, man.
Should be a good time. You can follow him at NM Sports Capper on Twitter. He's 16-9 overall on this show. 3-2 last week. Eric forgot a pick. I'm not trying to point fingers. He forgot a pick, so we'll talk about that when we get to that segment. But his name is Mr. Jacob Neff. D's nuts.
Yeah, just so you know what he's referring to. You got the shirt on. Yeah, no, I mean 16-9 overall. Got some games that I like this week. We'll go over those. We'll talk about UNM and Air Force and how I can't believe it. I never thought I'd be saying this at this point in the season. UNM is a 6.5-point favorite against any team that they played. But yeah, we'll go over that and talk about some more college football.
He's been a Lobo fan since 1970. He's the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. His name is Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Normally I would be down there, but my son, I was supposed to be down in Silver City this weekend, but my son got married to our daughter-in-law now, Skylar Hindi Hubbard. So congratulations to the new couple. They're on their way to a little honeymoon in Taos. So we're really happy to be a part of that yesterday. And I get to maybe go to see the Lobos tonight. And I usually, that might be one of the few games I can see all year long. So I'm looking forward to that tonight.
I had a guy tell me that he went to 2 funerals. I had a coworker tell me that he went to 2. He's going to have 2 funerals. One is when he dies, and the second is when he got married. But congratulations to Nick. Happy to hear that. I know it's been a long time coming, so very, very happy. It wouldn't be, let's see how loud it is. I wouldn't be able to talk about Air Force without this. Today, game day, 5 o'clock, True TV or Max. You can get the call on Lobo Radio Network. Rob Portnoy, Dontrell Moore. United States Air Force comes to UNM, and it wouldn't be fitting. I hope Sean O'Toole's watching. Kenny Loggins on the greatest 80s movie ever made. Maybe next to Ghostbusters. All right. That's it for Kenny. That's it for Laser Loggins. Very quickly before we get to picks, does anybody have if you get the Laser Loggins, I'll buy you a coffee reference. Very quickly, let's just get our thoughts. I will start with Jacob because of the line. Apparently, it opened up at 2.5. You know me, I follow Sportsline, which is a website under CBS Sports. I like to look at lines there. I do go to I use Action Network. Like I love Action Network more than I love Life right now. I'm always on it. The line opened up at 2.5 according to Caesar Sportsbook. It is now at 6.5. The over under is 55.5. I like the over in that game. But before we get to those picks, Jacob, when you heard this line, I texted it to you on Tuesday night, and I think you were it kind of blew your mind.
Yeah, so I never thought that we'd see UNM as a almost touchdown favorite against anybody this season. However, I mean, when you look at how bad Air Force has been this year, they're just not the same Air Force. Their defense is just okay. They actually put in their 3rd quarterback last week. They're trying to find an identity with that team who could give them a spark. They can't really pass the ball when they need to. They haven't been able to run as effectively as they have over the past years. I don't know if it's that they're lacking a little bit of athleticism this year, but they don't don't seem to be as fast. So I think this team is really struggling, and that's why you see such a strong change in the line going to UNM. I would say, in this game, I still have a hard time laying a touchdown with UNM just because we've seen how bad the rush defense has been, and this is going to be your first test of hard-nosed running. However, the only reason that the over scares me a little bit in this game too is if they happen to have one of those, patent Air Force 9 to 10 minute drives where they chunk you away 3 or 4 yards at a time, that could kill almost an entire quarter. So you would need there to be some effective drives, but not too long. And there would need to be a couple where UNM, scores quickly too. So it's actually a tough line now, but it's been bet up the over. So I'm not sure where the value really lies in this game anymore if you like UNM or the over, because they've both been bet up to pretty tough numbers to cover. So yeah, it's just an interesting game. I think we'll get to see how good UNM defense really is after, another bye week, and see if they figured out some things, because, man, giving up 40 to New Mexico State after what I watched this week, that's hard to believe. So if they're going to really have to tighten it down, yeah, we'll see where it goes from here. But I don't see how you don't go with the over with what we've seen out of UNM's defense and the way that their offense has been able to produce. So in that game, not laying a touchdown or around a touchdown, with UNM taking the over in that one if I was betting it.
Brett Newberry, I see the comments. This show on Saturday mornings is football centric. Post those questions again on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday when we're in Las Vegas. If you can watch, I apologize. Our focus is college football this morning, and I'm not talking realignment because it's made my head explode. We appreciate you listening, though. Jacksonville State's defense sucks, and they only allowed New Mexico State 13 points. Rick, very quickly, what are you looking forward to tonight?
Well, I'll be watching on True TV. We got Mike Golick Jr. doing the game with JB Long, so that'll be cool. I've never heard Golick Jr. call a game.
He's pretty good.
I like the work he does, though, so that'll be cool. Air Force comes in leading the series 26-14 historically. The interesting matchup here is really Air Force offense, obviously, against UNM defense. Air Force scoring offense, 131st in the country. UNM scoring defense, 131st in the country. Air Force total offense, 131st. UNM total defense, 131st. So you have the worst offense going against the worst defense. Today, we're really going to learn what's more important, offense or defense, because you got two of the worst ones. And UNM's offense is clearly better. We got Dampier throwing for nearly, or the Lobos have thrown for nearly 1,000 more yards so far this year than the Falcons. Lobos got 32 points a game, but I have to agree with Jacob. I think the under is the way I would go in this game, just based on the play style that Air Force has and them only averaging 10 points a game themselves. Starting at the O-line today for the Lobos, we'll get Owens at left tackle, Beckett at left guard. Agnello is back at center today, who I think has played all three positions this season. Unamba at right guard, and I wrote Unamba at right tackle, but it's somebody else.
He's not good.
Yeah, he's going to play the whole right side. Eli Sanders is going to get the nod at running back, even though Rodgers had the big numbers last game. And biggestly on defense, we got Gabe Lopez and Noah coming back, and Noah Pola Gates looks fully healthy starting at corner. New Mexico, though, is giving up more than 240 yards on the ground per game this year and surrendering 44 points. So for me, I think if Dampier is able to connect on a few of those longer plays, this game could actually get out of hand, and I look for the Lobos to blow out Air Force. I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be 10 or more point victory today for the Lobos, and kind of more of a turning point than what we saw last time against the Aggies.
It's almost eerily similar to New Mexico State. I thought they were going to, they covered 10 against New Mexico State. It was 9.5, and they covered. That was impressive. Ed, very quickly, what are you looking forward to tonight with Air Force in town?
I think a lot of good points made by Rick and Jacob. And remember, Air Force is averaging 3.4 yards per carry, I believe. But traditionally, I don't care when it's been, that triple option is befuddled New Mexico. And look, there are some things said, and I agree with some things and not with everything. New Mexico's offense, and Rick, you just broke down the offensive line. Famika Amea, the offensive line coach, had to rebuild that line from scratch. He had to get a lot of players. Remember, they lost their offensive line last year that sprung Bill for 1,500 yards. So he's starting all over. They've not allowed a sack. That's improvement. That's, traditionally, when New Mexico struggled with win-loss records, their quarterback has been running for their lives and getting hit, getting destroyed. That's an improvement. That's improved there. The offense is improved. The offense can score. They've seen that with anybody in the country. The defense is porous. The defensive front seven has not been good. Now, supposedly getting some depth back today. Sooner or later, the defense, they don't get any turnovers. They don't sack the quarterback. They don't get off the field on third down. Today, they've got to see some improvement there. You have to see some improvement. It's been a bye week. Does Tavion Combs come back today? You really don't know because Coach Mendenhall plays everything as far as injuries. He's not going to say anything about who's available and who's not. The New Mexico, to Jacob's point, is favored in any game, especially by 6.5 points, raises the heck out of my eyebrows. It does because New Mexico's D is bad. So hopefully today, and Rick, you play ball, man. You play football. It's gap assignment today, man. It said that in the paper. B gap, C gap. You can't over pursue because then they're out of the backfield on a wheel route. If you're the Air Force offensive coaches, you're saying, hey, man, if you're watching film, this is what we need. Look at this, right? I mean, if they have to be looking at it and saying this is what we need to cure what ails us, this defense. So New Mexico has to step forward. I hate to be so blunt and honest about it. The offense has been great. It's been very good. When does the defense step up and make some plays? I'm hoping it's today. I've got New Mexico 31-14.
I'm kind of impressed by that. Switching gears before we get to the picks, and we're going to make Nick Coppola rate a little bit. I'm sorry, Nick. Johnny Sanchez, your Pavia comment. Who's which one of us? Aged real well, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Here to see your words. I guess you didn't watch the show Tuesday night because we were all completely shocked. And as I've said on this show, my problem with him is the polar opposite of what he does. He's God this, God that. And I'm repeating myself. What would Jesus do? I'm sure he'd kick down the door in your neighbor's house and take a piss on the floor because that's what kind of guy Jesus was. Kentucky Vanderbilt's at Kentucky today. It's down to plus 12.5. I've seen 13.5. I do like Vanderbilt on the road. I mean, I was waiting for the SEC speed to catch up to Diego, and it really wasn't like that on Saturday. I mean, they dominated them on the line of scrimmage. Rick?
Just one comment on Diego. I'm fully supporting, him being an Albuquerque kid. It doesn't really matter to me that he played at New Mexico State. I don't agree with everything he's done, but I heard a lot of conjecture on the radio of Albuquerque this week from Jeff and JJ and others asking the question if Diego Pavia is the best football player to come from Albuquerque. Now, I don't want to keep Nick waiting, so really quick. He is not the best player to come from Albuquerque. We're going to start with Jim Everett. I think Ed has mentioned that before, Pro Bowl player from El Dorado. But one player we haven't mentioned, and that I mentioned on Twitter that got a lot of traction is Alan Branch from Cibola. This man went to Michigan and was a second-team All-American, first-team All-Big Ten, 33rd pick in the NFL draft, played for the New England Patriots, recovered a freaking fumble in the Super Bowl. What are we talking about? Diego Pavia is not going to be a second-round draft pick. He's not going to be a second-team All-American. Let's move on. I'm all for it, but let's screw our heads on straight, Albuquerque.
Jacob, did you have something to say?
No, I was just going to say I played high school football with Alan Branch. I mean, he was literally on my team. Dude was a freak of nature. He was the one that started the 28-3 historic comeback for the New England Patriots that year. He sacked Matt Ryan, recovered the fumble, and that's when the 28-3 comeback started. So, I mean, that dude was insane on so many other different levels than anybody I've ever watched. I mean, this guy was running. I remember my freshman year, we were in the state. And I mean, at this point, I wasn't on varsity, but he ran a sweep on 4th and 22. That's how confident they were that nobody could stop him. They put him in the backfield, ran a sweep on 4th and 22 in the playoffs, and he converted it. So
I mean, he returned punts too, right, Jacob? And you should have seen this kid in Yaffle when he was in 7th and 8th grade. I'm a year younger. I'm watching him. He's running fullback. It takes 4 or 5 kids every play to tackle this guy. He's a grown man at 7th grade. You have no idea. When he was 14 years old, I see him practicing with the varsity high school team. They keep him after practice at 14 years old, and they drill him and Cook into the ground off to the side. This guy was built differently. He dominated New Mexico. He also played basketball and I believe was a second team all district player at Cibola. So I just don't want to forget some of the other great football players and athletes there were. Pavia, no doubt, has the biggest win as a quarterback from someone from Albuquerque. I'm not arguing that. But when you look at overall college career, I don't think it's fair to say at this point he's the best player from Albuquerque.
Yeah, one more quick thing on that. Let me just weigh in on that too. I think you guys, I didn't even see this guy play, but Tommy McDonald, the guy that played at Highland, supposedly grew up in Roy, but went to Highland High, a Hall of Famer. Played for the Philadelphia Eagles, made the NFL Hall of Fame, man. Played for Oklahoma. There's another guy. So I think people got a little bit out of sorts with and give Diego credit. That's a huge win, right? That's a huge win. He's obviously a quarterback. It's going to impact the plays. He touches the ball every time. But Alan Branch, I reffed his basketball games in high school. I remember what a great player he was. A better football player than basketball. But people get a little overhyped when they see that win. It was a great win. And Pavia, a New Mexico tinged interview afterward, man. I mean, who's going to ever forget that? But, people, don't believe the hype. It's believe the hype. It's a great win. But when people start saying he's the greatest football player out of Albuquerque, we just mentioned some other people. And, to be fair, Pavia's career's not over yet. We don't know what else he's going to do, but some of the other players that we mentioned definitely deserve their shine too, because they were great players. And in Tommy McDonald's case, a Hall of Famer, Jim Everett, a Pro Bowler. Alan Branch just got elected to the New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame about 2 years ago, I believe. So yeah, there's been some other impactful players besides Diego Pavia.
We are still offering Nick Coppola. He hasn't joined yet, and I got to go here real quick. I'm not too keen on Ed's score prediction for the Lobo game tonight. He predicted Vanderbilt to lose 50-14 to Bama. I thought about that right. I thought about that right away.
I was wrong, man. Way off. I was real wrong.
And of course, everybody knows I'm a big Jim Rome guy. Check that, Chris Everett. All right, to today's You Bet Your Ass segment as we wait for Nick Coppola. I will start with Neff's picks. Here you go, Edward Dunn the third. We start with Cal and Pitt -3. Jacob, why do you like Pitt -3? I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They kind of stole my thunder on ESPN last night because there was a stat that I had keen in on that I've been paying attention to, and it's any team that's traveled over 2 time zones this year, they're 1-8.
The only one is Miami.
The only one that has won is Miami, and that was a crazy comeback against the team that we're betting against here in Cal. It's very hard to come back after that type of loss, but then to have to travel clear across the country to play Pitt, who's actually playing at a very high level. Holstein was a backup quarterback for Alabama. I think we're finding out that he's better than what he was projected to be. He can turn the ball over a little bit, but he's got Pitt rolling. I don't think that this is a good spot for Cal. Like I said, 1-8 against traveling 2 time zones. These teams are starting to figure out that joining the conferences that they did and having to go through these travels are not that easy for college kids. You can't just take them out of school and travel on a Wednesday and get there. So these travels are starting to catch up to them. I'm going to take Pitt -3 on Cal having to travel clear across the country.
Georgia State and Old Dominion over 54.5.
Yeah.
Why do you like that?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a high scoring game. Georgia State's been participating in high scoring games all season, but Old Dominion is the key factor here. They actually just made a change to Colton Joseph as the quarterback. Grant Wilson started the year. He had that team only the highest point total that team had scored when Grant Wilson was manning the team was 19. If you look at the last 2 weeks, Grant Wilson started against Bowling Green. They pulled him. They put Colton Joseph into the game. They scored 30 and beat Bowling Green. And last week, if I'm not mistaken, scored 37 against Coastal Carolina. He's got that team running with a little bit more of a higher pace. He has a better ability to throw the ball, and Georgia State's going to put up numbers in this game as well. So over 54.5 is the play in that game. You'll see a little bit of pace and tempo with Georgia State. Old Dominion likes to play a little bit slower, but I think that they've been more effective on offense. So 54.5 going over on that game.
And then I'll explain the Johnson. Eric had some issues with his brand new baby girl, so he got what he could to us, and I appreciate it. BYU -3 over Arizona. BYU's undefeated, and they have rolled people, and it is in Provo. Big noon kickoff. The Stoll show shown by Fox for the show that they stole, that is basically a College Game Day ripoff, is in Provo. I'm sure they're partying wildly there. BYU -3. Why, Jacob?
Yeah, I've been high, and I still am on Noah, and I think that this is a decent team, but I think we're starting to see the effects of how much they've lost and how hard it is for you to just come in as a new coach and guide the ship to what they did last year. I think the expectations may have been a little bit too high for them, but then you go look at BYU, and BYU's been rolling people. They have a great I think they have a good quarterback, and here's another thing that BYU does: they take care of the ball at home, they play defense, and they make sure that they put games away when they're up, and that's something to say about college teams. A lot of college teams can get a lead, but can they sustain it over the period of time? It's going to be a crazy environment. I honestly think that Arizona looked really bad against Texas Tech last week in the second half. They had a great win against Utah, but I think we're starting to see that Utah potentially is not as good as we thought they were. I know Cam Rising was playing basically with one hand yesterday, and it was the throwing hand that he was trying to play without. So that was tough.
Robo QB.
Yeah, Robo QB. But BYU in this spot, they've got a chance to be up there to make the college football playoff, and you can't lose a game like this. It'll take you completely out of the picture. So only laying a field goal in a game like this, big environment, I'm taking BYU -3.
And just one note from that game, Bill Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is still ineligible to play, so he will not be joining the fun.
ASU beat Utah last night. Jacob, you and I love Kyle Whittingham, love Cam Rising, but he was Robo QB last night. He made some good throws, and then he made throws that look like if I was at quarterback for Utah. I'm not knocking him. There's talk that they might bring him back next year at 26 years old. Arizona State beat them. Arizona State was picked dead last in the Big 12, and Utah was picked to win. Arizona State is 5-1 now. Kyle Dillingham has done a fantastic job. Is that his name? I know it's Dillingham.
AKA Andrew Luck.
Yeah, he looks like Andrew Luck. Kenny Dillingham, Kenny Dillingham. And then you again, to specify, and again, appreciate Eric doing this. I know he had his little girl was sick. Avery Johnson, quarterback for Kansas State, over 71.5 rushing yards. That's rushing yards there. They play Colorado tonight at 8:15. I don't know. I look at the schedule and I feel like I always miss something because I'm an idiot, but that game is now on my radar today.
Yeah. I just think that this is too little. He's been running against better defenses all year for this total. I also think that their offense kind of revolves around his running and just their running game in general. So they're gonna pound Giddens, and then eventually he's gonna pull it and he's gonna make a couple big plays against that Colorado defense. I don't think that the Colorado defense is. I mean, we've seen them be better over the last couple of weeks. However, the run defense is a concern for me from Colorado's perspective. I think that they can defend the pass. Obviously, they've got Travis Hunter out there, so it makes it a lot easier. But when you look at the run defense here, I think that this is going to be a problem. And I think that Kansas State knows what they need to do to win this game, which is run the football. And I think Avery Johnson goes over 71.5 yards. The thing in college that a lot of people don't understand is that a quarterback gets sacked, you lose rushing yards. in college football if you take a sack. What I like about this is that Kansas State doesn't really run those plays where he's in shotgun and he tries to scramble around. Avery Johnson's a very good quarterback. When he sees the pressure coming, he doesn't try and elusive. He's more of a run first quarterback. So if he sees that pressure coming, he's not going to try and run around and make a throw. He's going to take off. His first instincts are to do that. So you won't see a lot of huge sacks in this game. And plus on top of that, Colorado's defense and their in their defensive line doesn't sustain the most pressure. So not really worried about that from that perspective. I actually could see Johnson for running over 100 yards in this game. So I think 71.5 is too low.
I think that they have made, I know Will Howard and what he's done at Ohio State. It's been meh. I still think they made the correct move with Avery Johnson. I think he's, and every time I say Avery Johnson, I think of, Germany, Israel, Minnesota. What does Eddie Murphy? What does Whoopi Goldberg call him? An Eddie Pipsqueak or Cockroach? Loved Avery Johnson for the Spurs. Just an FYI, I didn't do this to start. Jacob with Neff numbers under the "You Bet Your Ass" segment. Neff is 3-2 last week. Eric forgot Washington. I know it's after the fact. They did pull the upset. He did send it to me. I have it in text. We're not trying to pull a fast one on you. He's 16-9 overall and was 3-2 last week. I need to tally my entire season. I think I went back to like week 1 or week 2, but the last 2 weeks, hey, I'm 8-2. I'm really impressed by that. We'll go to my picks now. I'll make this quick. I think Alabama's on the revenge tour over South Carolina, 21.5. It's in Tuscaloosa. I think Kalen DeBoer is not Nick Saban, but I'm sure he's had tons of success. South Carolina, I don't know, has been up and down. They beat Kentucky, then what got rolled by Ole Miss last week. I like the over still in this Air Force New Mexico game. I mean, they gave up, it was 50-40 the last time they played with 90 points, 55.5. I'm shocked it's not higher. I'm sure it's going up, as Jacob mentioned. And then I'm not going to delve too much into it. I'm probably going to blow this bet, but -2.5 Washington and Iowa. And then to our locks for the week. And let me fix that real quick. Jacob, you like the over in NC State and Syracuse. Why?
Yeah, I think Kyle McCord has got something going there in Syracuse. I've watched a lot of NC State football this year. I think that Kyle McCord could produce a pretty significant amount of points against NC State's defense. They're not as good as they historically have been, but NC State's offense can move the ball. They have a decent passing game with Bailey. They can scramble, but Syracuse's defense is pretty weak. I think we all watched that a couple weeks ago against UNLV. Not very much resistance from Syracuse's perspective. So I think Syracuse is going to put up their points in this game, but where I think the key is that NC State should be able to move the ball as well. So they're not facing any crazy weather issues there either with the hurricane blowing through there. I've checked that. So at 52, I think you could see a team easily get into the mid-30s in this game, and then you just need somebody at around 24, and you've cleared the 52. I could see that happening. I could see Syracuse passing the ball a lot, which is what they have been doing over the last couple of weeks. So give me the over in that game, and I actually like this to get into the 60s. Just an initial look at it. So that's my lock of the week.
My lock of the week is only because Old Dominion stinks. They are at Georgia State. That's too low. Even at 2, I would take it. So that is my pick of the week. Another team that we're missing today, and I couldn't cue up the song by the Village People in the Navy, is the Naval Academy. Army placed UAB, and it looks like the Trent Dilfer experience is kind of failing there. I like Army here at 10 o'clock. They host UAB at West Point, and if you've never been there, it's fantastic. Going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, Nick Coppola from the Las Cruces Sun News, and it bothers me. I hope I can pronounce his name correct. It's driving me bonkers. We'll be right back. This is the Morning Howl. Welcome back to the Pit Press Live, joined by Jacob Neff, Rick Thompson, Ed Nunez, and now from Las Cruces, Sun News to talk a little New Mexico State football because we're now in the Conference USA weekday schedule where they play, 50? We're in the midst of 55 straight days of football. He's a reporter, covers high school athletics down south and New Mexico State athletics. His name is Nick Coppola, which I always forget how to pronounce your name, Nick. I'm sorry. I hope you're well.
No, you got it right this time.
Perfect. I will start here, and I'm sorry I'm using Sam Guzman from, I think, KVIA. New Mexico State offensive coordinator Tyler Wright. Sam is reporting that he's no longer with the team or employed by the university. Wright's dismissal comes a whopping 14 days after he said women are only good for sex. Well, I mean, decades ago. Wright's dismissal comes after New Mexico State completed its review into his controversial decade-old social media posts. Nick, what do you know?
Well, first of all, I don't mind you mentioning Sam was the first one to get it, so I don't mind you mentioning him.
You had the story though.
Yeah, I did have the story. I mean, they fired him. You know, that's the update. That's the update I have. As just for my continued reporting, I'll just let that do the talking. I stand by every single report I made on this issue and on this situation. Andrew Mitchell is going to call the plays for New Mexico State for the rest of the season. He's their offensive line coach and the run game coordinator. He's been calling the plays for the last 2 games against New Mexico and Jacksonville State during this investigation, so he will continue to do so. Sanchez commented on it. They had a press conference Friday, not because of the right firing, it was just a coincidence, but that he was able to make a comment on it. And so we talked about that. He basically just expressed some sympathy for him and seemed to maybe disagree with New Mexico State's decision to fire him, saying that he provided a good review for him if he was looking for another job and things like that. Yeah, you know, he's gone now. They fired him. And like I said, I stand by all my reporting in this situation.
Gotcha. They lost to New Mexico State, lost to Jacksonville State and Rich Rod on Wednesday night, 54-13. This team is not good. The only thing, I mean, barely beat SEMO and put up 40 against UNM, I guess, in a losing effort. What did you take away from the Jacksonville State game?
Yeah, the team is very bad. That's probably my main takeaway. Yeah, I mean that's how it is. You know, the offense went back to struggling. You know, the defense is one of the worst in the country, especially their run defense. It's the second worst in the country statistically in terms of rushing yards allowed per game amongst FBS teams. So it's just not a good football team. You know, Tony Sanchez said that as well. You know, they're just not good. They're just not good right now. They did suffer a couple injuries. Monty Watkins had a pretty bad injury. That was a little bit scary. He took a hard hit to the head, had to go off into an ambulance, but he did have feeling in all of his extremities. So that was really good news. Santino Mariucci also got a concussion. So both him and Watkins are in concussion protocol and won't play against Louisiana Tech next Tuesday. So it's Parker Watt starting for the Aggies against the Bulldogs. They are getting a couple guys back. Shias Pete specifically, he was their all-conference tackle last year, and they're getting him back at tackle, which is a huge addition back for the Aggies. You know, they finally have their offensive line back at full strength. As for the Jacksonville State game, I mean, they scored the first points, so I mean, you figured, you know, hey, this could maybe be a competitive game, and then Jacksonville State just ran out the points from there. You know, they just have issues in a lot of different places. You know, I mean, the offensive line allowed some pressure. You know, they still didn't have good quarterback play. Seth McGowan had to do everything. They finally threw their first touchdown pass to receiver in the 6th game of the season. So I guess that was a positive. Again, the run defense was not good. I was probably expected that Jacksonville State was going to make a performance combined with New Mexico State's run defense and the fact that their quarterback Tyler Huff and Trey Stewart are both really good running the ball. And Rich Rod's offense can really move up and down the field pretty fast, and New Mexico State just couldn't cope with that. And so, yeah, I mean, very little went New Mexico State's way.
I forgot about Monte Watkins. I saw him get carried off on the stretcher, and then my man with the greatest name, Santino Mariucci, he got rocked, and his head bounced off the turf. I guess they go with Parker Awad, who 9 of 16, 120 yards, a touchdown, interception. So I got there. No, there you go. Ed, do you have any I know that you sent me some questions via text, so I'm going to throw the question. I don't know what I'm talking about. Ed, the ball's in your court.
Thank you. Yeah, Nick, against New Mexico, the Aggies, they had a breakout game, man. They scored 40. New Mexico, especially in the fourth quarter, couldn't stop them. And then they backslid against Jacksonville State. Tyler Wright wasn't calling the plays, for the last two games. What happened against Jacksonville State? Again, good momentum going into that game. What did you see as far as what you saw as far as their offensive game plan? They fell apart, 13 points in the whole game after a good performance against not a very good New Mexico defense, but at least you had confidence going into that game.
Yeah, it was very, very, very strange. Like you said, New Mexico's defense wasn't really that good. So maybe that was the contributing factor in New Mexico State having their best offensive game of the season there. I think some of the differences were Santino was maybe a little bit more comfortable running the football against New Mexico. He didn't do all that. He only had 3 carries against Jacksonville State, so he was a little more hesitant to do that. He looked a little bit less comfortable. Some of the play calling was from Andrew Mitchell was a little bit weird. They ran some trick plays. They ran a flea flicker that didn't work. They ran a play, which is actually the play where they got Monte Watkins hurt, where Mariucci kind of pretended to go to the sideline to take instruction from the coaches, and they just direct snap to Watkins, but then he dropped the snap and then got rocked, and fell with the football, and Jacksonville State recovered. So they tried to do just a little bit different things, and just didn't work out for them, and just resulted in extra possessions for the Gamecocks. And also they gave up a safety to Jacksonville State's on an interesting play call too, because they ran kind of like an outside zone play on like the half-yard line, and Seth McGowan got tackled in the end zone just because he had a little bit more ground to make up there. Yeah, so I mean, there's just a little bit differences there. Like I said, Santino just regressed again. He kind of looked like he did against Sam Houston instead of how he did against New Mexico. Parker Ward looked a little bit better, but that was when the game was well over. So yeah, I think those were some of the main differences. Just some things, there were just a little bit of strange transitions. The quarterback didn't really look all that comfortable, and they just didn't really execute as much.
Those gadget plays come down to execution for sure. And when you drop a snap, that messes up the whole play. I just have one more question for you. But, Jared Kill started out 1-5, much like Bronco Mendenhall 1-4. And then, Jared Kill turned that around. And with Diego Pavia, they changed the culture of that program. They did. They beating Auburn last year. And then, of course, Diego Pavia going on to Vanderbilt and beating number 1 Alabama last week. How much of a difference did those two make in that changing that culture? Because it seems now Tony Sanchez came highly regarded. He came highly regarded, and it seems as if New Mexico State has slid back to where they were before Kill came there. Now, hopefully not for the Aggie fans down there, but what's your opinion of that?
Yeah, I mean, Jared Kill is, obviously one heck of a coach. He's turned around many programs, not just New Mexico State. He did good things in Minnesota after they were bad. Northern Illinois was pretty mediocre, and he went 10-3 with Northern Illinois. So he's kind of just a fixer-up coach in a sense, and he did that for New Mexico State. He won 10 games with the Aggies, which is unheard of in Las Cruces. I just think things are a little bit different for this year. It has to do with them being under a first-year coach. They had over 30 guys under the portal after that happened, and they had to replace basically their entire team. And so every time you do that, obviously you're going to have to do a little bit of rebuilding. The team is going to look drastically different than it was last year, because this is honestly not the same team that went 10-5 last season. This is a very different team with very different guys that they try to rely on. And yeah, I mean, Tony Sanchez obviously isn't Jerry Kill. Jerry Kill's a really good coach, and Tony Sanchez just hasn't quite reached that level yet in terms of doing what Jerry Kill did. And maybe one day he can become that, but right now it looks like he doesn't quite have that, even though he was a Kill hire. So I just think things are a little bit different. They don't have the quarterback that they had last year. Giga Papia is obviously a really good quarterback. They haven't really found a guy like that. And so, yeah, I think things are just different. When we're trying to replace a bunch of guys, when you're trying to replace a coach as good as Jerry Kill, combined with the fact that historically you just haven't had a lot of success in football, nor have you had the resources nor to sustain that kind of success. I think it's all culminated in the season that they're having, when you have a coach leave abruptly like that after just 2 seasons. And so I just think a lot of things changed, combined with what New Mexico State already had at its disposal, and it's combined into the season that they're having.
Anybody else have a question before I move on to Louisiana Tech? All right. Louisiana Tech just played on Tuesday night. I believe it was Tuesday night. I don't know what day. I don't even know what day it is.
It was Thursday against Middle Tennessee.
That's it, Thursday. I'm thinking of who played Tuesday night, because there was still
that was Liberty and FIU.
That was Liberty and FIU. That's right, because I almost got killed by that overtime. Louisiana Tech beat not a very good Middle Tennessee State, coached by Derek Mason, 48-21. New Mexico State hosts them on Tuesday night, 7:00 at Aggie Memorial. And once again, they're playing a team that put up a lot of points against a bad team. What did Tony Sanchez make in reference to this Louisiana Tech team?
Yeah, he talked a lot about Sonny Cumbie, who's of course the coach of Louisiana Tech, an offensive guy. He had a lot of really good things to say about him. Just not just about how he likes him personally, but just how he runs the offense there, and how he thinks it's going to be and how he thinks it's going to be a difficult offense to stop. Especially with New Mexico State's defensive struggles this season. And I agree. They can pass the ball a lot. They can pass the ball really well. New Mexico State has really bad run defense issues, but they also can't really stop the pass as well. Evan Bullock's a good quarterback, or he has been a good quarterback for them. I don't think he's thrown an interception so far this season, which is pretty impressive. At 6 games through the season, or I guess Louisiana Tech has only played 5 games. So yeah, they have a really good passing defense that they're going to have to try and stop. They've leaned a lot more on the pass than they have the run, but given New Mexico State's run defense issues, I imagine they'll try to go more towards the run against the Aggies. So that's something that they're going to have to try to deal with. And in terms of their offense against their defense, Parker Watt's back in there. He's mostly struggled this season. That's why they went to Mariucci in the first place and tried to do Sogan a little bit before he got hurt. So he looked a little bit more comfortable against Jacksonville State. So we'll see if that translates to Louisiana Tech. That's been his problem for most of the season. He just hasn't really looked ready for Division I football like this, or at least to start in Division I football. He just hasn't really looked all that comfortable. But another thing is, New Mexico or Louisiana Tech has allowed the least total yards per game amongst Conference USA teams. So statistically, they have one of the best defenses in the whole conference, and that does not bode well for New Mexico State offense. That's mostly struggled apart from one game against a bad defense. So yeah, and especially, they have all their offensive linemen back. Shia Speed's coming back, of course, like I said. But they're having what is now their backup quarterback in there starting another game. So that's going to be a big challenge for them. It's tough to predict New Mexico State winning any game though. So I'm probably going to go with Louisiana Tech right now. They are at home, but they played a lot better at home than they have on the road this season. They've won their only game at home. They played Liberty close at home. They played New Mexico close at home. All the road games have been blowouts, so just decisive losses. But who knows, but I got Louisiana Tech in this one.
New Mexico State and UTEP are combined 1-11. They play over Thanksgiving weekend. That might be the Sickos Committee game of the year. I'm looking forward to it. Nick Coppola from Las Cruces Sun News. You're a OU grad. Are you watching and I'll give it the proper name, the All-State Red River rivalry today?
I am. I got a free day, so of course I'm going to watch. I mean, I do think Texas is going to win, but I don't think they're going to dominate. Red River is always a close game. It's always a toss up. You never really know what's going to happen. So I do think it's going to be a game where Oklahoma is definitely going to compete. I'm hoping for the best. Texas is legit. They're a very good football team, but like I said, in a rivalry game like that, you never really know what can truly happen. And so I do expect a close one-score game, and hopefully Oklahoma comes out on top.
Nick Coppola from Las Cruces Sun News. Appreciate you. We'll talk to you maybe next weekend. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
I think Rick's got a jump off. I'm going to go to the comments real quick, Rick. Paul Bonilla, why are we having an NMSU reporter on the show? Are we still going to be playing them this season? First off, I do appreciate you watching. Second off, you don't book the guests. Third off, there's a huge NMSU contingency in northern New Mexico. We'd like to cover the whole state. John Romero commented, I bet Neff and Tamori picks all year, and my bankroll is sitting pretty. Hey, that's good. John Romero, Paul Bonilla, ease up, go back to bed perhaps. Paul Bonilla, do you ever have the Lobo reporter dude on the Aggie show? Oh, wait. LOL. I'll be honest, I don't know what the hell that means. Rick, final thoughts on Air Force?
Few final thoughts on Nick Coppola. I think he's doing a great job down there on the coverage that he's providing, the articles and tweets he's putting out. And anyone coming at him on Twitter over the coverage he had on the fired coach, you need to get a life if you're going to come at some guy for doing his job of reporting. As for the Air Force game today, like I mentioned, I think Lobos are going to roll. I think it's a 10-point or more victory for them. I do see it going under. I know you guys like the over, and for good reason. I just think it's going to be a slower game today. So Lobos 28-13 will be my call, and let's see him do it.
Ed, I'm going to go to you for final thoughts, and I'll see you at the game tonight.
Yes, you will. But you know what? I think Rick's absolutely right about Nick doing his job. I can't stand when people start saying, oh, it was 10 years ago. Why are they going after him? Everything that you write has a digital footprint, so don't blame anybody but yourself. Look in the mirror, take some accountability, and you know what? Learn from it. Maybe down the way he gets a job somewhere else. No one's saying he shouldn't. So I think I'm going to go stick with my original prediction. I think New Mexico wins today and wins 31-14. And hopefully the 2-game win streak here, and we'll get the Lobos going where I think we thought they might be before the season started. So I've got New Mexico tonight.
Rick had to drop off. If you are listening to us for the first time today, we might be ingesting some of Walter White's meth, because we never give that much love to the UNM football team. If you go back and listen to a friend of the show, really appreciate him, Sean O'Toole, who writes for Mountain West Wire. He covers Air Force and the military academies. He's very knowledgeable. I've told him, I was like, man, I thought you would do this full time. He doesn't think that Air Force can win today. That means that there is, all caps, is no Aggie show, eye rolling emoji. Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought that, but I still didn't know what the hell you were talking about. And I'll just end that at there. We wanted to start an Aggie show because we feel that the coverage down south up until Nick sucks. And I will say it again. Last team to beat UConn in the NCAA tournament, name it. Jacob, final thoughts on tonight.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is where I'm a little more objective. I think UNM is in a tighter game than we think today. I'm thinking somewhere around the 31-27 range. So I'll take UNM to win by 4 or so, and cash those season-long win totals for anybody that backed UNM at over 1.5 today. Today would be your day to celebrate if they pull off this victory as their second win.
I think UNM can dominate tonight. I haven't watched Air Force that much, but their only win is over FCS Merrimack. Usually I'd be more like, holy moly, watch out. Air Force. So what, again, Rick said it, 26-14 all time in the series. If you've never seen a game at Colorado Springs, it's fantastic. I was there for homecoming a million years ago, and the entire lead up to the game was just flyover of different planes, gliders. It was phenomenal. And I saw a comment several years ago that was, Lobo fan is rude to the airmen. And I kind of believe that. You can, of course, it's a game, it's a conference rivalry game. What these young men do, I would never have the gumption to do. So to play football and attend the academy and abide by the strict regulations and what it means to serve your country. I'm a big Troy Calhoun fan. I'm really shocked that they have struggled this way. And while Army and Navy are doing kind of Air Force things, but they, again, hopefully that game at the end of the year means that they play twice. I think, well, it's not a conference game, but they play for, they play the Army Navy game, then they could play each other in the American title game to go to maybe the college football playoff. Other notable games today, busiest week thus far with Mountain West Conference games, all 12 teams in the Mountain West Conference playing. UNLV ass blasted Utah State last night, although Utah State had the nice backdoor cover. San Diego State's at Wyoming. San Jose State is at Colorado State. Wazoo is at Fresno. Oregon State at Nevada. And Boise State tonight. Ashton Genty leads the nation in rush yards, all-purpose yard and total TDs. Nick Nash of San Jose State leads the nation in total receptions and TDs. Jacob, one last thought. Ashton Genty rushing yards over.
Yeah, I mean, you almost have to take it at this point. However, now you're going to get one of the top two rushing defenses in the Mountain West Conference this week. So we'll get to see a true test for him of what it's going to be like for the rest of the season. If he runs through Hawaii, this is going to be a problem for everybody. He is now the Heisman favorite. I'm not sure if everybody has seen that, but he took the lead over Travis Hunter after last week. And then I actually saw a pretty cool little interview with him on ESPN yesterday. He has a bet with his offensive lineman where if he does not rush for over 2,000 yards, he has to cut off all his dreadlocks. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, if he does, then the offensive lineman has to get a tattoo of something on him. So he's got bets within his own team. And I think 2,000 yards is going to be an easy accomplishment after he's got over 1,005 games. So that would be under his season average at 183. I think you got to take the over in that. They're going to keep pounding him, and he's too dynamic to hold down.
He's fun. They're fun to watch, man. I don't know if they're better than UNLV. We'll find out in about 2 weeks, 2 Friday nights. That game's October 25th. Paul Bonilla, still love you for chiming in and watching the show and supporting it. On behalf of Rick Thompson, Ed Nunez, Eric Malton, Jacob Neff, congrats to Nick Nunez again on tying the knot. This was the Morning Howl. We will be in Las Vegas this week for Mountain West Conference basketball media days. Jacob and I are flying out Tuesday night. I believe that Kevin Sweeney of SI is joining Eric and Rick on Tuesday night. We're not going to be on. And then we're trying to figure out what we're going to do next week. Most likely a live show Wednesday afternoon and live during the day with all of the men's basketball players on Thursday, seeing what we can bring to you. Everybody enjoy college football today. Be safe. Don't do anything I would have done 10 years ago. Enjoy the Lobo game. We'll recap it later this week. Everybody have a good rest of your final Balloon Fiesta weekend.
Our head coach of our Lobo football program, Bronco Mental.
The details themselves, with the right preparation, can separate you from mediocre competitors that don't do that. And so, the attention to detail, I think, drives the execution, or should I say brings the execution to life, especially in critical moments.
Our head coach of our Lobo football program, Bronco Mental.
The details themselves, with the right preparation, can separate you from mediocre competitors that don't do that. And so, the attention to detail, I think, drives the execution, or should I say brings the execution to life, especially in critical moments.